Hello, friends. Welcome to Literary Concepts. Today's topic is the modern age. So, the modern age, which was started in 1901 and extended up to 1945. So, now let us try to learn about the modern age. The modern age in English literature so refers to the period from 1901 to 1945. So this is also called as modernism. The modern age is also known as modernism. So the modern age encompasses which includes the period from the start of the World War One unto the end of the World War Two. So this period covers the World War One, beginning of the World War One to the end of the World War Two, a significant time for societal and cultural upheaval. So it was a significant time for the social and cultural disturbance. So it marked by rapid changes. So the modern age, in modern age, we find a rapid changes in society, technology, war, and philosophy. So it was emerged as a reaction to the Victorian ideal. So it was started as a reaction to the Victorian principles. So with the writers seeking new forms of expression to capture the fragmented, uncertain, and fast changing world. The writers of modern age, they were searching for the new ways of the expressing the fragmented, uncertain, and fast changing world, so which was happened between 1901 to 1945. So we also find the influence of World War One and Two, the rise of industrialization, and existentialism. So existentialism means it's a philosophical movement so that emphasizes individual responsibility and the meaninglessness of existence. So that existentialism and the psychoanalysis, which was propounded by Sigmund Freud, psychoanalysis means it was a theory that explores the unconscious mind to understand and resolve the psychological issues. And the modernist art movements deeply influenced this modern age. So the modern literature was influenced by the World War One and Two, the rise of industrialization, existentialism, psychoanalysis, and the other modernist art movements. So they deeply influenced. They had a strong influence on the literature of the modern age. Now let us try to understand the characteristics of the modern age. The first one is break from tradition. So there is a break from tradition. So the modern literature rejected Victorian realism and moral certainty. So the modern writers, they refused the Victorian realism and moral certainty, and they embraced, so they supported the ambiguity and complexity. So they supported that uncertainty and difficulties. The second characteristic is a stream of consciousness. So stream of consciousness means a person's thoughts and conscious reactions to events perceived, conceived as a continuous flow. So there is a flow in the person's thoughts and conscious reactions to the events. So that is what is called stream of consciousness. The writers like James Joyce and Virginia Woolf used the stream of consciousness technique to explore the inner thoughts and feelings of characters, to understand the inner thoughts, and feelings of characters. The third characteristic is impact of war. We find that devastation of, the destructions of World War One and World War Two had a profound impact, had a great impact on modern literature. So which was led to the themes of disillusionment, that is disappointment. A feeling of disillusionment means is a feeling of disappointment and fragmentation and the search for meaning in a world disrupted by conflict. So which was completely disturbed by the this clashes and clashes which happened because of World War One and World War Two. Therefore, we find and we see that the influence of war is more on the modern literature. The next characteristic is avant garde art and literature. Avant garde means a new experimentation, a new approach, and a new experimentation in ideas. So, the modern age saw the rise of avant garde movements. So, a new and experimental ideas movements started during modern age, including cubism. Cubism means it is a new approach to representing reality. So it is a new approach to represent the reality. Futurism, which focused on the dynamism and the energy of the modern world. Futurism focuses on the dynamism, the changing world of modern, the changing time of the modern world, and surrealism, so which depicts the illogical and dreamlike scenes and ideas. So these movements, these art movements, which influenced literary experimentation and the breaking of traditional boundaries. So because of these avant-garde movements like cubism, futurism, and surrealism, we find that there is a experimentation in literature, and we also find the breaking of the traditional methods, traditional boundaries, the constraints. Then the next characteristic is influence of psychoanalysis and philosophy. So even we find that the impact of psychoanalysis and philosophy, the works of Sigmund Freud and philosophers like Friedrich Nietzsche and Henry Bergson influenced modernist thought. So Sigmund Freud works and Friedrich Nietzsche's works and Henry Bergson, so they influenced the modernist thought and they influenced the modern writers more. We find the impact of these philosophers on modern literature. Sorry, in modern literature. The next characteristic is disillusionment. So that is disillusionment and alienation. So disillusionment means so a feeling of disappointment. Alienation means isolation, so separation. So many works reflect the loss of faith, anxiety, and existential despair, especially after world wars. Because of world wars, we find the loss of faith, anxiety, and existential disappointments. So these aspects in many works of modern literature. The next characteristic is fragmented narratives. So the narratives, the descriptions, understand the way of storytelling. So we find that fragmenting, so broken. So the modernist works often lack a linear plot. So there is no sequential order in narration. So reflecting the chaotic nature of reality. So that is the disorderly, the confusion nature of reality we find in modernist works. The next characteristic is use of symbolism and imagery. So symbolism means so use of symbols to represent ideas. Imagery means use of images or pictures to represent the thoughts and ideas. So writers used this vivid imagery, the graphic imagery and myths and symbolism to convey deeper meaning. So the writers of the modern age, they use that graphic imagery, pictures, and myths and symbols to convey their deeper meanings. Then the next characteristic is free words in poetry. So poetry, free words means a poetry that does not have rhyme. So we don't find rhyme in poetry. So poets like T.S. Eliot, Ezra Pound moved away from traditional rhymed verse. So they just tried the new method of writing poems. Okay, they just deviated from that traditional rhymed verse and they used that free words. So where that we don't find any rhyme pattern in poems. These are the characteristics of modern age. Now let us try to understand. Okay, sorry. The another one more characteristic is critique of industrialization and war. So it criticizes the industrialization, so rapid growth of industries and war. Literature of the modern age examined the dehumanization caused by war, technology, and consumer culture. So that is dehumanization means depriving of human qualities or denying of humanity. So because of war and technology and consumer culture, we find that dehumanization during modern age. The next characteristic is global and multicultural perspectives. The global and multicultural, several cultural perspectives, understanding, point of views. So literature expanded beyond British and American writers during this time, incorporating voices from post colonial, feminist, and marginalized perspectives. So, during this time, we find beyond British and American writers, we also find the voices, okay, the point of views from post colonial, feminist, and marginalized different views, different perspectives during the modern age. So these are the characteristics of the modern age. Now let us try to understand the major writers and their works. Okay, regarding to poetry. Okay, the major writers and their works of the modern age in respect to poetry. In poetry, we find the here the some of the important writers. T.S. Eliot, whose time period started in 1888 and ended in 1965. His important works are The Wasteland, which was published in 1922, Four Quartets, which was published in 1943, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, which was published in 1915. These are the important poems of T.S. Eliot. The next important writer is W.B. Yeats, so whose time period started in 1865 and ended in 1939. So his important poems are The Second Coming, which was published in 1919. The next poem is Sailing to Byzantium, which was published in 1928. One more poem is Easter 1916, which was published in 1916. So these are the important poems of W.B. Yeats. The next writer, the next poet is Ezra Pound, so whose time period started in 1885 and ended in 1972. His important works, the poems are The Cantos, which was written between 1915 and 1969. And the next poem is Hugh, Hugh Selwyn Maberly, Hugh Selwyn Maberly, which was written in 1920. These are the two important poems of Ezra Pound. The next poet is Wilfred Owen, So whose time period started in 1893 and ended in 1918. So his important poems are, so the first one is Dulce et decorum est. Dulce et decorum est, which was published in 1920. The next poem is Anthem for Doomed Youth, which was also published in 1920. The next poet is D.H. Lawrence, so whose time period started in 1885 and ended in 1930. So his important poem is Birds, Beasts, and Flowers. Birds, Beasts, and Flowers, which was published in 1923. So now we find in the prose and fiction the important writers. So Virginia Woolf, whose time period started in 1882 and ended in 1941. Virginia Woolf's important works are Mrs. Dalloway, which was published in 1925, To the Lighthouse, which was published in 1927, Orlando, which was published in 1928. So these are the three major works of Virginia Woolf. The next writer is James Joyce, whose time period started 1882 and ended in 1941, just like Virginia Woolf's. So his important works are Ulysses, which was published in 1922. The next one is A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, which was published in 1916. And the next one is Dubliners, which was published in 1914. The next writer is E.M. Forster's, whose time period started in 1879 and ended in 1970. So E.M. Forster's important works are A Passage to India, which was published in 1924, Howard's End, which was published in 1910. These are the two important works of E.M. Forster's. The next writer is D.H. Lawrence, so whose time period started in 1885 to 1930, and his important works are Sons and Lovers, which was published in 1913. The next one is Women in Love, which was published in 1920. And the next work is Lady Chatterley's Lover, which was published in 1928. These are the three important works of D.H. Lawrence. The next writer is Aldous Huxley, whose time period started in 1894 and ended in 1963. His important works are Brave New World, which was published in 1932, and the next work is The Doors of Perception, which was published in 1954. The next writer is Joseph Conrad, whose time period started in 1857 and ended in 1924. Joseph Conrad, his important works are Heart of Darkness, which was published in 1899, Nostromo, so which was published in 1904. Some other writers, F. Scott Fitzgerald, whose time period started in 1896 and 1940, ended in 1940, F. Scott Fitzgerald. His important works are The Great Gatsby, The Great Gatsby, which was published in 1925. Then the next work is Tender is the Night, which was published in 1934. The next writer is William Faulkner, whose time period started in 1897 and ended in 1962. His important works are The Sound and the Fury, which was published in 1929. The next one, As I Lay Dying, which was published in 1930. And the next one, Light in August, which was published in 1932. These are the three important works of William Faulkner. The next writer is Ernest Hemingway. Ernest Hemingway, whose time period started in 1899 and ended in 1961. So his major works are The Old Man and the Sea, which was published in 1952, A Farewell to Arms, which was published in 1929. The next one is The Sun Also Rises, which was published in 1926. As a part of prose, these are the prose and fiction. These are the important writers which we find during modern age. The next one, okay, as a part of drama, we find the important writers George Bernard Shaw. George Bernard Shaw. So his important plays are Pygmalion, which was published in 1930, Saint John, which was published in 1923. These are the two important dramas of George Bernard Shaw. And the next dramatist is T.S. Eliot, who's one of the most important play, Murder in the Cathedral, which was published in 1935. This is the most important play of the T.S. Eliot. And one more dramatist, playwright is Samuel Beckett. So Samuel Beckett's most famous play, so Waiting for Godot, which was published in 1953. So sometimes it anticipates the postmodernism. So though it expects the postmodernism. Waiting for Godot, which was published in 1953. So these are the famous writers in drama, and in part of as a part of essays and non-fiction. So here are the some of the important writers. Virginia Woolf, once again. So Virginia Woolf's A Room of One's Own, so which was published in 1929, is A Room of One's Own, and the one more is Three Guineas, which was published in 1938. So A Room of One's Own and Three Guineas are the essays of Virginia Woolf, and then T.S. Eliot's Tradition and the Individual Talent, which was published in 1919, so which was very popular as a part of essays. So T.S. Eliot's Tradition and the Individual Talent. The next writer is George Orwell. George Orwell's the important work is The Road to Wagon which was published in 1937, and the next work is Homage to Catalonia, which was published in 1938. These are the important writers in poetry, prose and fiction, drama, and essays on non-fiction, which we find during the modern age. So they important writers and their works. I hope you understand. So thank you very much.